All right, so for the next few minutes, we're going to be talking about Clumio, what we do, how we do things, and we'll do a feature deep dive on S3 Backtrack. It's a new recovery modality that we introduced back in November 2024. And finally, we'll do a quick demo of the feature, and then I'll hand it off to Govind to talk about Cloud Rewind. All right, so what is Clumio? We are now part of the Commvault Cloud portfolio, and then we provide simple automated backups for AWS data services. But with a twist. Right? So it's a fully backup as a service, fully managed backup as a service offering that's built in AWS for AWS services. You don't need to manage servers, infrastructure, agents, none of that in your account. It brings hands-off simplicity. And then
how does this differ from Metallic?
So we are AWS. We provide backups only for AWS services. Metallic is SaaS as well as the other services as well. And it's air-gapped and immutable by design. And we have high scalability and performance. In fact, our restore performance is 10x that of our competitors. And we do all of this at 30% lower costs compared to the other products in the market. I briefly mentioned air gapping, but then let's do a deep dive and understand why air gapping is crucial for data resilience. If you think about backups, there are three types of backups. One is your local backups. These are stored within your account, within the region that your primary data is. These pose the highest amount of risk. You can maybe recover from operational errors, but then if an AWS region goes down or your account gets compromised, there's no way to get the data back. Next up is cross-account and cross-region backups. Again, these provide some level of isolation compared to local backups. If your AWS region goes down, you can bring it back up. If your account gets compromised, yes, you can get the data back. But then ultimately, the backups are still within your enterprise security sphere, which means that if your account gets compromised, it's only a matter of time before all of the other accounts in your enterprise security sphere gets compromised as well. So there's no way to get the data back in that scenario. And that's where air-gapped backups come into play. These are what give you the highest resilience and pose the lowest risk. These backups are stored outside of your enterprise security sphere in what we call Clumio Secure Vault. And you cannot access the data without due authorization and access. Right? And these are immutable by design.
Okay, can I ask a question? When
Sure.
you say air gapping, is that like a physical air gapping that happens in OT environments, or is this just logical?
It's logical air gapping. And we'll go into the architecture as well, where you'll understand what I mean.
The question is, Clumio Secure Vault, where is, outside of AWS infrastructure, I understand. Or it's inside AWS infrastructure?
It's inside AWS.
Okay.
And that's a good segue into the architecture diagram.
Okay.
We'll go into that in just a bit. But then, think of it as a separate account from your own. So it exists outside of your enterprise security sphere, but still within AWS.
So it's still within the same region as the data?
No, you can choose. Again, air-gapped backups can be in or out of region. We let you choose where you want to store the backup.
Yeah, but if you use S3, right? I assume you use S3 because there is nothing really else, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's always across different regions.
If I use a stream?
S3.
S3,
like object storage,
yeah.
Right? It's generally by design global namespace.
Right. But the bucket itself can be in a different region.
Yeah, it can be, but it's just a logical endpoint.
It's logical air gapping.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And the backend for the Clumio Secure Vault is S3?
Yeah, we store all the data in S3. We have a purpose-built storage for all the backups that we store. All right, so what do customers use us for? We've had customers use us for operational recovery, ransomware recovery, long-term retention and compliance. These are scenarios where highly regulated industries like financial services and healthcare industries want to retain the data for like 7-8 years due to FINRA or HIPAA compliance requirements. And then we've also seen consolidation of backups across various use cases, and of course, to optimize costs as well. We provide backups and data protection for various workloads, starting with DynamoDB. And we also help you protect unstructured data and data lakes in S3. And we also support regulated data in RDS, and then the other apps and services like EC2 EBS, Microsoft 365, and so on. Yeah, and this is the architecture that I wanted to talk about. On the left-hand side, you would see the customer AWS account. Let's say this is in region 1. And then the only thing that they need to do is onboard an account with us using a CloudFormation template or a Terraform script. And then the IAM role gets created on their account, and literally that's the only footprint that the customers will have to manage. No infrastructure, no servers, none of that. And then once the account has been onboarded, a logically air-gapped AWS account that's dedicated to each customer is created. And again, this can be in the same region or any other region for that regional isolation. And then once that's done, it's completely events-driven and serverless from that point on. We leverage AWS Event Bridge to read all the events and then trigger actions on our end. And we have a bunch of serverless Lambdas running that take care of all the tasks that we do. All the sausage making that happens behind the scenes is done by Lambdas. We auto scale out and scale in, depending on the workload, the size of the backups, and so on. And once that is done, we store the data and the metadata immutably in our environment, and we prepare the data for recovery. Again, we support a bunch of recovery modalities. You can search or query the data using Amazon Athena, and we support instant access, which leverages S3 endpoints behind the scenes, and you can do a full restore as well. Again, these restores can be cross-region or cross-account. And yeah, that's the architecture.
Could you go back to that one slide?
Okay.
The end of the slide?
Yeah.
Thanks.
And while we're doing that, something that stuck out to me, because I have to work with the data teams a lot. So in what, or maybe you're going to get into this, but in what ways does it help with the structuring of like the various data and stuff like that? But in what way does it also get involved with DynamoDB? That I'm really curious.
Yeah, so we protect the data, right? And then it's readily queryable as well. But we won't help you with structuring the data.
That's the part I'm curious about. Yeah, okay.
All right, so let's take a look at our S3 offering. Again, S3 and DynamoDB is what I'll be talking about for the most part here. If you compare S3 to any cloud-native backup today, we reduce backup costs by over 50%. It's the lowest list price compared to all the other cloud-native backup solutions out there. And the other important thing that I wanted to talk about is protection groups, right? So with all the other backup offerings out there for S3, it's all or nothing. You need to protect the entire bucket or not. But then we have something called protection groups that lets you choose the backup and restore granularity, right? You can slice and dice your S3 bucket and then back up and restore only a small slice of it if you wanted. Again, these slices can be based on various vectors like tags, prefixes, regions, and so on. We let you back up and restore through protection groups.
Is the granularity a big part of the cost savings there, or is something else factored?
No, so it's all in. We do like I said, we have a purpose-built storage layer as well that automatically gives you savings on your backup costs. And apart from that, our list price itself is lower than all the other cloud-native backup vendors out there. And then apart from that, on top of that, you can use protection groups to slice and dice your data and protect a small part of your bucket.
Okay, so you get the over 50% off the top,
Yeah.
and then you can save even more by being selective.
Exactly. It's apples to apples. If you were to protect only that slice using us versus any other vendor, then you would see 50% or more right off the bat. And on top of that, if you want, you can protect a single slice of data.
Yeah, because you get more flexibility.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All the backend that it's in this dedicated account, which is AirGap, it's basically you as a customer, I will not pay those costs. It's your cost, right?
Yeah.
And what about how you license your product by these protection groups or by terabytes?
Yeah, so it's by terabytes. We have two vectors when it comes to S3 backup pricing. One is the storage cost itself, right? We charge you 2.5 cents a gig per month.
The front-end cost of storage or after the duplication?
No, it's front-end.
It's a front.
Basically what you're backing up, right? And then the second vector is the object management fee based on the amount of objects that you're managing with us. Some of our customers manage billions of objects. So we charge you $1.50 per million objects that you manage with us.
And no extra charge, like, between the regions or anything like that?
We do have a restore fee as well as cross-region transfer fee as well.
Oh, okay. So on top of that.
On top of that, yeah. And that becomes an issue only during restore.
Yeah.
For the most part. So yeah. All right. So, and we're also 10x more scalable and performant. And these are customer anecdotes again. So we've had a customer that was trying to restore a 100 million object bucket. Compared to cloud native backup solutions, we were at 9 hours and they were at 3 days, right? So that's the amount of performance difference that you would see with Clumio. And then we are also faster when it comes to continuous backup. So this helps you with RPOs, right? So while all the other cloud native backup vendors out there support a daily RPO, that's the minimum. We support continuous backup. So it's completely events driven. And then we keep scanning your inventory, to understand any changes that are happening on your end, and then we'll back it up as soon as that happens. And then we're also 10x more scalable. We support 50 billion plus objects in a single bucket. If you were to compare that to the cloud native backup options on AWS, they're currently at 7.5 billion objects, and we are at 50 plus already. And we're also easier to manage, right? So I want to talk about 3 numbers here to hit home the point that we are much easier to manage compared to our competitors. Our NPS is 85, and then 98% of our support tickets are proactively resolved, which means that we have 24/7 predictive monitoring of your backups and restore operations. So even before you know it, even before you wake up in the morning and see the alert, we've already resolved the issue in the back end, right? So 95, 98% plus of our support tickets are handled proactively. And then finally, it's a true set it and forget it experience, right? It's the true Gmail experience is what we call it. An average Clumio user logs into the portal once every 37 days.
Wow.
Right? So that's how easy to manage Clumio platform is.
So if you have your secure vault, and there are multiple customers that are actually deploying backups into that secure vault. They're all encrypted.
Yeah.
By where is the encryption key?
Right. So we have 2 options. One is we manage the keys, or you can bring your own key as well, right? But all the data is encrypted at rest.
And as far as National Geographic data, regionalization, you support that as well? I mean,
yeah.
So the Cumulus Secure Vault would be in region.
Yeah, of course. So for GDPR purposes, we have purpose-built control planes in various regions. We have one in Germany, and we have one in US, and we have one in Canada as well. So based on your data residency
So
requirements,
both the control plane and the data are sitting in the national boundary.
yeah, data plane you can choose. At the time of backing up your data, you can create a policy and select where your backups need to go. And you have complete control over that.
Are you automatically doing cross-region, or is that an option that customer has to turn on, or is
The customer has to turn on.
there costs associated with it?
Exactly, yeah. So at the time of creating a backup policy, you choose where your backups are going to go.
And your continuous backup is based on change tracking? Is that
Right.
at the object level, or?
Yeah, it's at the object level. If you create more versions under the same object, we capture those events as well, and then we trigger backups based on that.
But this is in the object storage option, right? But when you back up RDS or wherever SQL is there, right? Then it's not the object driven. It's
so
directly tracked.
there you can select an RPO. Again, our RPOs are as low as 1 hour.
So I'm sorry, you back up EBS as well as object? Is that what you just said?
Yeah. So
But in that case, it's not change tracked.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Can we double click on the protection groups, because I think like in a cloud, that's where the cost saving is probably like the most beneficial.
Yeah.
So speaking of like DynamoDB, like how granular we can be with the DynamoDB, like is it like the whole thing, or like can we select like tables, like how granular we can go?
Yeah. So DynamoDB you can select tables. It's
Tables,
the table.
okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you probably mentioned in a previous slide, I didn't take a screenshot. Is there any support for the Kubernetes, for instance, and stuff like that, like the AKS and?
Yeah. So EKS would be
EKS.
EKS would be the AWS
EKS,
equivalent. But then, we don't support configuration backups just yet. But then what we've seen customers doing is they use a persistent storage, which is one of S3 EBS or EFS. We support S3 and EBS already. And then EKS, they can, it's basically a fleet of Kubernetes clusters that they can.
Oh, okay. But you don't have the granularity of like, pods and like, storing particular, like, so you don't have that.
No. Within the EKS, we don't support the pods or any of that.
Okay.
We don't support the config. But then if you have a persistent storage layer, we can support.
Yeah, like the whole thing, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you using, and I'm not sure what the terminology is for AWS, but where they have, where they'll migrate idle data objects from one tier to another down, are you using that sort of stuff at the back end for this, or you have all of it's currently active in S3?
It's currently, we don't use intelligent tiering.
Okay,
yeah. So we don't use that. We've seen that we are more cost effective than intelligent tiering as well.
And that's because you're compressing the data, or?
We do a bunch of things behind the scenes. Like I said, the purpose-built storage layer takes care of all of that. We do compression, and then we also store it in a preferred tier. Let's just say that, right? For cost benefits. And then we pass the cost benefits out to the customer as well.
And so how much shared infrastructure it is between your clients who are storing? Like, how much air gap am I as the end customer from the other end customer?
Yeah. So if you look at this, each account is dedicated to a single customer.
Right.
There's no Pepsi Coke problems, no noisy neighbors, none of that. Right? Each customer gets their own data plane account.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a look at a case study for S3. So Atlassian, one of the world's largest software project management companies, they were struggling with their S3 backups. At that time, they had 30 billion objects in a single bucket. Their RPO was about 4 hours, and then they were taking about 248 days to restore a single bucket. And then they were spending more than $10 million to back up all of their data. And then they were also repeatedly failing to scale due to the 30 billion object scale that I was talking about. At that time, they were trying to DIY a solution using cloud-native backup solutions in AWS. And then 3 billion was the maximum scale that they could hit in a single bucket. Now with Clumio, they were able to bring down their RPO to about 1 hour. And they were able to restore an entire bucket in less than 2 days, right? 248 days versus 2 days. Think about that, right? And we were also able to reduce their costs by about 70%. And again, they're currently at 60 plus billion objects already. And we are able to handle their backups without breaking a sweat.
I'm really curious about that RTO. Like, what attributed to such a huge RTO that Clumio was able to solve, like, specifically? I'm wondering.
So imagine this, right? When the maximum scale that you have is 3 billion objects, you'll have to split the bucket into multiple backups. And you need to orchestrate the restore operation from each of those 3 billion object buckets.
It's like
there's 10 of those, right?
So it's a lot of the manual work that you're removing from the customer side because you manage it all.
Exactly. We manage all of that, and we are scalable, 10x more scalable.
Gotcha.
But you have a limitation of number of objects per bucket as well, right? I thought it was 30 billion versus 3.
Yeah. But then you don't have to worry about how many buckets we use behind the scenes, right?
Oh, you automate that process.
Yeah, we automate that entire process. Again, we haven't hit those limits yet.
Well, with this guy, it's not going to be long.
All right, so let's talk about DynamoDB real quick. With DynamoDB, you don't have a lot of backup options in the cloud today, right? So they have something called point-in-time recovery. DynamoDB backups come with point-in-time recovery for 35 days. Again, these are stored within the same account as your primary data, so you don't get air gap or the backups are not immutable, because once you delete the primary data or once you turn off Pitter, you lose all of your backups, right? You can't go back to any point in time after that, right? The only other option for you to use is the cloud native backup option in AWS. But each of those backups are full in nature. So if you have a terabyte of data in DynamoDB, you take 7 copies, you're paying for 7 terabytes, regardless of your change rate, right? Which is where we come in. We provide incremental backups using DynamoDB streams and export to S3. And it's always less expensive compared to full snapshots. Again, your first copy itself is air gapped, so you don't need to worry about creating another copy of data for air gap purposes. And then finally, we are unified and auditable. You don't need to worry about having a separate copy of data for operational purposes and compliance purposes. It can be a single copy that acts as both. And we also are readily queryable, and we have automated compliance reporting. All right, so I want to talk about Duolingo real quickly here.
Before you go down that path, there's a lot of cyber resilience capabilities that were part of the other discussion. How does that apply to the Clumio backup solution?
Right, so we bring resiliency with backups, right? Air gap is, I think I would probably let Tim take it. Do you want to take the,
While you're discussing, I guess, I'd like to expand on Ray's question. Like, there's a lot of features that were mentioned in Commvault Cloud that you have, air gap and immutability, but certain things like threat detection and an IRE that are not. I guess the question is, like, are there plans as Clumio gets more integrated into the Commvault portfolio to introduce those capabilities?
Yeah, that's the ultimate vision. We want to integrate with the Commvault platform, but then we don't have timelines at this point. Okay. But then what you can do today is Clumio is API first, right? The reason that our average user logs into our portal once every 37 days is that our API framework is so robust that you can do almost anything using APIs. We've seen customers use Splunk or Datadog for monitoring, and then once their APIs trigger an event, they'll automatically trigger a recovery mechanism using Clumio. So our APIs can be that bridge between the pre-event and post-event. All right, so
you mentioned before that a customer that had a terabyte of DynamoDB would, if he did normal cloud-native backups 7 times, be effectively 7 terabytes.
Yeah.
In your case, it wouldn't be because you're doing change tracking and differential backups.
Exactly.
Incremental backups, effectively.
Yeah, we are doing incremental backups forever, and we'll talk about that as part of the Duolingo case study. So they were spending more than $1.5 million annually on just DynamoDB backups, and then they were able to retain only 7 daily backups. So if you were to think about it, they could go back only 7 days if they wanted. Now Clumio came in with incremental backups, forever incremental, and then we were able to save them more than $1 million, 70% or more savings using incremental backups. Again, they also got immutability and air gap for free along with it. And then now they're able to retain more than 30 copies at a much lower cost.
Is the incremental something that the customer gets to select, or is that something that's automatic?
It's automatic.
The challenge with incremental backups is the restore, because you're trying to rebuild the structures from an original full backup. What's the restore time for something like this versus cloud native backup, which would have a complete terabyte version of the database?
Our restore performance is the best in the industry.
Best in the industry.
Yeah. DynamoDB restore performance is really good today. I can get you some numbers offline, but then
That's fine.
I can get you some numbers offline, but then we've had customers tell us this. Again, we are not telling this ourselves.